Alright everybody, welcome to the video for lesson number 4, angle, angle, side, triangle congruence along with CPCTC. So these proofs are kind of like a culmination of everything we've learned in the first 4 lessons, all kind of put together. So if there's little pieces or things that you're missing or you're unsure of, just look back at your notes. We've done everything that's on these 2 pages. So let's take a look at number 1. So number 1 asks us to prove the 2 triangles are congruent, so that does not need CPCTC. And if we go through and do some highlighting here real quick, so if we highlight one triangle here, highlighter's not working correctly, let's see, oblique pen maybe, there we go. So we'll go with this triangle and this triangle. So these are the 2 that we're trying to prove are congruent. So with that said, we now have to start looking at our givens. So the first 2 givens kind of are together, so I'm going to put them in one big circle. So I'm going to say BD is perpendicular to CD, I'm going to say AB is perpendicular to AD. That's all given. Remember, whenever you're given something that's perpendicular, it's always going to be 2 steps. So the first step is, where does BC and CD intersect? Well, they intersect here, that's a 90-degree angle. And where does AB and AD intersect? Well, they intersect here, that's a 90-degree angle. So I can say angle A and angle C are right. And the reason for that is perpendicular lines form right, helps if I spell right correctly, RIGHT angles. Now that I know that they're right angles, I now know they're congruent. So now I can say angle A is congruent to angle C because all right angles are congruent. Sorry, my pen isn't really working that well. I need a new tip. Alright, so now I know one set of congruent angles. Now we have to deal with this pesky angle 1 and angle 2. Notice angle 1 and angle 2 are not in our triangle, but adjacent angles 3 and 4 are. Now, one of the things that I know about angles is if they're congruent, their supplements are also congruent. So I could say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, that's given. That tells me that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 because congruent angles form congruent supplements. Now, if you're having trouble reading my handwriting, just listen to the video because I'm telling you what to write there. So that should say congruent angles form congruent supplements. The next thing that I see in my picture, since I've used both givens, is BD is reflexive. It's in both triangles. So then I could say somewhere over here maybe that BD is congruent to BD by the reflexive property of congruence. Another circle, and then my last circle is going to be the 2 triangles are congruent. BCD is congruent to triangle BAD, and I have 1, 2, 3 arrows pointing towards it. Always check that. And if I look at my yellow triangle, I have an angle followed by an angle followed by a side, so that would be angle, angle, side. There's your first proof. Again, everything in there we've done at some point this year. Let's look at 2. Now 2 gives us this proof. This tells us I'm going to need CPCTC because it's not asking us to prove triangles are congruent, it's asking us to prove segments are congruent. So the first thing I want to do here is let's go through and do some highlighting here. So if we highlight one triangle and the other one, I see that my highlighter actually goes on top of itself here. So I'm going to definitely have reflexive again. Let's start with our givens though. So the first given is that BD bisects angle ADC. That's given. Now a couple of you in class I noticed struggled with this one. BD bisects angle ADC. So angle ADC gets cut into two equal pieces which I'll call angle 1 and angle 2. The angle is what's getting cut in half, not the segment. That's a common mistake for some reason, but really read it again. Right after the word bisects is what gets cut in half. So bisectors is one of the first things we did in this chapter, and we know that a bisector divides a segment into two congruent segments. The next thing it gives us is that angle A and angle C are congruent. That's just given. No thinking involved there. That's nice. And the last thing we want to look for is the reflexive property. So then I can say BD is congruent to BD by the reflexive property of congruence. Then I can say the two triangles are congruent. So I could say triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB. 1, 2, 3 reasons. And again, look at the triangle, angle, angle, side. Notice that the side's not between the two congruent angles. So again, this is an angle, angle, side proof. But that's not what it asks us to prove. It asks us to prove that two segments of those triangles are congruent. That AB was congruent to CB. And the reason we know that is CPC TC. That's your proof. If you're able to do both of those proofs, you're in a really good spot here moving forward. Tomorrow in class, we're kind of just going to review some of this. We're not going to move on to lesson 5 just because it's the day before holiday break. Right? Hopefully these videos are helping you. Please watch them. I think that some of you could really use watching them even a couple times at times. Right. Also, don't forget to try these first by yourself. Right. Don't just watch the video and copy everything down. It's a waste of your time. All right. But use these videos to help you get through whenever you need to. Good luck.